black people. We believe blacks commit a disproportionate amount of crime, and we believe there is a genetic influence on the predisposition to criminal behavior.
First question that I'm going to ask from the chat is, for BPF, what's your opinion on the AF movement, and what about groypers in general? Sorry, Kai.
Oh, well,
this is good. This is good.
My opinion is that AF is completely and totally incoherent. They have absolutely no platform that they can stand behind, no policy positions whatsoever. And this is why they don't write a platform. This is why they don't write anything down ever that anybody can actually look at, because they don't want to actually stand by any of the things that they claim. So they'll change their claim from a Tuesday to a Wednesday. And what they do is they mask it behind irony. So they say, well, we were just joking, we were just kidding, we were just playing. But they never actually take any firm positions on anything. And when they're pressed about it, kind of their worldview falls apart. So that's my opinion on America First.
What's like one example of like one of those issue flip-flops that's like significant? That's not just like a dumb like thing that like is fine to flip-flop.
Well, before we hit with a flip-flop, what's the coherent position of AF?
No,
what do they want?
you made a statement. I'm asking you a question about it.
And this is why I'm inquiring. So what is the actual?
Can't even, hold on.
I'll mention the flip-flops, Sky, but try.
I know you will. You just made a statement. I'm asking you about one of the claims you asserted, and now you respond to the claim. And then you can ask your question to me, and I'll respond to your question. Okay, that's how a conversation goes.
That you'll change your positions from a Tuesday to a Wednesday?
Yeah, so what, like I asked, what was one of those positions that's significant
like
to even mention?
Let's look at deplatforming, for instance. Is AF traditionally been an advocate of deplatforming?
I have a chat question about that as well. So somebody in chat asked, should people be allowed to should the Olympics be able to DMCA restream and commentary of their content? Also, is deprivation of income a form of torture? Is false DMCA attacks on streaming channels to stop people making fun of you a human right? I'm sorry. I'm so sorry.
Wow, those are all extremely specific.
Is DMCA a form of torture?
Look, I'm sorry.
I'm sorry. So here's and I'll be generous and I'll kind of answer your question so I can establish the ground. AF historically, or like AF as it exists, until the America First Foundation was founded, was not like a politician. And you were correct to mention there is not a website that has like our mission statement. Here is our view on this topic. The view and kind of the consensus around what AF's position is from the show America First, which Nick does. And so most people who consider themselves a part of AF in the colloquial sense as people who follow, enjoy, and watch Nick Fuentes' content are going to assign themselves or align themselves behind the views of said individual, the way that individuals might behind a politician, for instance. But AF has never been an organized political group in that sense until the foundation, or until the beginning or the existence of the America First Foundation just a few years ago. It is my understanding that in the upcoming future, with midterms and with a new election coming up in 2022, there's going to be a much more overtly political angle that AF is going to be taking as a foundation, as I don't know what kind of company or what kind of corporation, or I don't know if they filed for any status. I'm not, behind the scenes on that. But it's my understanding that they will use their influence, and that is something they certainly have, and that Nick himself has, to push weight behind certain candidates. And we have seen either attempts made at this before, and journalists have shut attempts down. And we've also seen just a massive wave of support coming from AF to certain candidates and politicians, literally just by word of mouth. And that might not be a good enough answer for you, but it is one that has had an effect nonetheless.
Oh, no, it's a perfect answer. So let's drive it home. So it's a movement behind a singular person's ideas. That would be the correct way to categorize it then? Because that's what you just said.
I would add a caveat that there's kind of more context to that. There's a line of thinking that it falls under, but Nick himself has said, and AF remains a unideological movement. We are not like, we are the Burkean Association. We are not like the whatchamacallit.
What is the movement about then, if it's not ideological?
Well, okay. So you kind of misunderstand. It's ideological.
Those are your words. You said it's a non-ideological movement.
Okay. So we're already getting into the point where you're nitpicking about words I say, so you can deliberately misunderstand me because you're not interested in
anything.
Okay. Now you're interrupting. You don't care about the conversation. You think this is an own. When I say that AF is not an ideological movement, I don't mean that AF is not a movement about ideas. If you're intelligent, you'll know that's not what I was saying, because that sounds ludicrous to say.
So what are the ideas?
I am saying that AF is not a movement that aligns itself particularly behind some kind of ideology the way that a Burkean movement would, or the way that like a typical Republican movement might, or a Reaganite movement might. We do align ourselves behind ideas. That should be something that you can assume to be the case.
Right,
and I could clarify. Oh, there's all kinds. But like I said, they come from ultimately Nicholas J. Fuentes, who created the America First
movement. So the whole thing's fucking incoherent. You have no ideology. You literally can't tell me any of the ideas behind the movement. This is my problem with AF. It's very simple.
I'd be like, well, there's a lot of different things that AF believes. I'm not going to get into the specifics unless you ask me to. BPF be like, so you don't actually believe anything. Well, let's go back to something that you said then.
Wait, Kai,
you gave me.
He is asking you. You said you wouldn't get into them unless he asked you, and he is asking you. What are the specifics?
Yeah,
what are the specifics?
Well, and I forgot to answer, by the way. Forgive me for forgetting to answer your original question. There's so much to get to. AF has never been staunchly like anti-deplatforming in the universal sense. Cozy TV is not a platform for wignats. It's not a platform for idiots and dumb people, and there's no problem with that. AF is not universally like free speech absolutist. It never has been. AF sees the issue, which is the deplatforming of what we deem important dissident voices, and it stands up against that. So in that sense, we align ourselves against deplatforming. But it's not ridiculous at all to say that aligning yourself with or against deplatforming means that you, or rather doesn't mean you support everybody.
Gotcha.
Mm-hmm.
But there is no actual ideology that is coherent that you could tell me, right?
Well, Kai, just to drive it home.
Well, hang on, Fanatic, let him answer my question real quick.
That sounded like a pretty coherent position right there.
Well, hold on. No, it doesn't actually. Because Kai, look, he's asking you for specifics, and you just said a bunch of things that you don't believe. Can you go into a specific thing that like AF actually does believe? That was his original question.
No, there was a positive. There was a positive and a negative there. So the positive is that we align ourselves against the deplatforming of who we deem important dissident voices and important dissident discussions. But we don't believe universally that, like, you know, all deplatforming is like this evil injustice. And that's why I bring up the free speech conversation. There's people that get upset that Cozy doesn't want, like, every, like, dumb wignat on our site. And that's because we don't believe that every dumb wignat should have, you know, that free speech platform. We don't believe they're entitled to that. But we do, because we have actual values, push weight or support certain people with certain ideas, right? There's a reason that I'm on there. There's a reason that, you know, Dalton is on there. It's because there's certain parts of me or Dalton or, you know, Nick himself.
His ass. That's why you're on there.
I mean, I don't think Haas or Jackson Hinkle are like out there blowing Nicholas Fuentes, honestly.
Well, and that's the other thing too, is like BPF will do this, like, yeah, they're there so that they can you know, like blow smoke.
Those
up.
Aren't Groiper generals, are they?
What?
Are those Groiper generals?
Dude,
no, hold
on. This is like something that's always been so weird to me, like that idea of like Groiper general. Like this is what Patrick Casey. No, Nick has
Yeah.
never once in his
Yes, he
life
has. You're lying.
called me
You're
a
lying through your teeth.
groiper. Okay, tell me when Nick called me a groiper general. Tell me when he did that.
That's what they call it. That's what he calls
Okay,
you guys.
so
He
I'll
says
just believe
us and
you.
the groiper
I'll just
generals.
believe you. Okay. Hey, when did he do that?
You
Well,
think
then
that we're
that's
not
what
going to
he
be able
did.
to provide
Okay, when
clips
did
of
he do
Nick
that?
Fuentes saying that
No.
groiper generals?
I would be shocked if you could find one clip of Nick calling me a groiper general. I would be surprised.
Referring to his higher echelon or people like you as groiper generals. But this aside, can you please get back
Colloquially, like
to
as an
to the
expression?
coherent worldview of AF, which is my problem with it, is that there isn't one. What is the worldview of AF? What do you want?
I think I understand.
What do you want?
I think I understand what you're saying, and that is that you don't like that AF does not assign itself like a very strict kind of philosophical or moral universal framework.
Anything.
No,
okay.
Saying anything
what does your movement want?
Saying anything is disingenuous, and you know that. Since AF's inception, it has oriented itself unwaveringly against legal immigration. This is the thing that kind of blew it up on the scene when it was originally coming up against Turning Point during the Groiper Wars in 2019.
I need a history lesson. Tell me what you want.
Okay, so you stand for nothing, and tell me when you stand for something.
He just said it.
Explain that the movement has been standing for something since its inception, and you say,
What?
"Well, I don't need a freaking history lesson."
What? Just tell me what it is.
He just said it. He just said it.
No, he didn't say it.
I'm sorry. I heard it. What he said was.
Well, okay. Well, then do tell me, fanatic. What does it stand for?
He just said that like they've stood against like legalized immigration for quite some time. Like that's what their platform is about. That's one of the things that like help them come into prominence. Are you listening?
So to get this right, this is a movement. This is a movement gathered behind just anti-immigration.
Yeah, no, that's what I was saying.
That's the only thing.
That's what I was saying is that that's the only thing that people stand behind in AF. Yeah, that's what I was saying.
So can we get to the so can we get to the coherent part where we understand what the ideology actually is? Just saying that you have a policy of being anti-immigrants, it doesn't tell us anything. And just because fanatic spurging means nothing to me. It's very important that just because you say
and now you're just gonna be an idiot.
I hate you so much. We have a history of being anti-immigration. That's great. Tell me right now in 2022, what is AF's ideology? What do you want?
My face when I started this conversation saying it's not an ideological movement, and I could have, if you would have stopped interrupting me, elaborated that it is a pragmatic movement. It will take certain stances on certain policy positions based on the worldview of the people who are kind of running it. And that is why I liken Nick Fuentes to a politician. Politicians don't follow one strict universalist set of ethics or worldview that they attach to every single political issue. They have different ideas depending on the issue and the way it arises. So when you say, and this is my problem with the way you're framing it, is you're asking me to take a pragmatic approach on certain issues when they arise, when the time comes, and fit that all into one framework that it's never been like. And you're saying anything outside of that framework is not a sufficient answer for me. Well, spoiler alert, life's not like that. Pragmatic politics is not like that, okay? It's not ideological in the way you're describing it. It's ideological in the sense that these people who lead this movement have a certain set of values, and they attach those values, however, incoherent or however coherent they may be, to certain policies and rally around their positions. Like immigration, like talking about crime, like talking about the affinity that the Republican Party has had throughout time for the state of Israel. These are things that that AF has stood for over time. And if you don't think that's a sufficient answer, then that's fine.
What are the values then?
Wait, what about crime? You just said talking about crime. Like talking about crime can't be the policy. What about crime? What are the
AF kind of differentiated itself from a lot of like the major parts of the Republican conservative movement because it brought in the factor of race.
So what does AF believe about crime?
AF believes that there is a racial component or there's a demographic component to crime, which is not simply limited to the cultural disparities.
Meaning it's inherent.
Well, what are your thoughts on that, Andrew?
No. We don't believe crime is inherent. That's a ridiculous.
What else could it be? What else could it be?
That there is a genetic component, that people can have certain predispositions to criminal behavior based on their genetics.
If it's genetic, it's inherent.
Okay. You're doing this like
What?
stupid wordplay.
Just one
I'm
second.
trying to establish it. We don't believe that somebody's like born a criminal, but we believe that certain groups can have predispositions to behavior, and crime is not unincluded. But if we could
okay.
actually get back to the point, Big Papa Fascist.
Before we go anywhere, guys, I'm sorry. I want to know before we go anywhere.
Wait, hold on. You think you no, Stardust, I'm sorry. He's being very cringe. Big Papa Fascist.
She's the mod. Let her finish. What?
I was gonna ask. Look. I was gonna ask before we go anywhere. I want to know what BPF's thoughts are on crime in relation to what was just said.
No. Hold on. Stardust. That's not what he's getting at. Because he may even agree with me. What he thinks is that because I'm like hiding all my actual beliefs in irony, and that Nick Fuentes hides all his beliefs in irony, he thinks that I'm not going to elaborate the position of AF, which is that, and that's why he does a snarky, well, which groups? Black people. We believe blacks commit a disproportionate amount of crime, and we believe there is a genetic influence on the predisposition to criminal behavior. We don't deny there is an economic or a general cultural influence as well, but we do believe that genetics play a larger component than mainstream society has allowed people to consider.